we really treat motivation as something that like you're either born a motivated person or you're not. Like you're either a motivated, high achieving person or you're lazy. But it's not that. It's like there are skills and techniques. And if you're learning those skills and techniques, if you at some point are taught those, then you're going to succeed in these environments. And if you're not taught them, you're not going to know what to do. And no one is born just like knowing how to be motivated.
Oh,
Hello, how are you?
good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I am mostly set up. I think we're good. I think I'm recording. I'm recording. Wonderful. Yes, how has your day been so far? Happy Monday.
Thanks. It's been pretty good. I'm teaching a first year experience class this semester. It's my first time doing one at Georgia Southern. And one module I have to teach is evaluating information. So it's about like fake news and stuff, which is great. Like, media literacy is important. And I was just reading like all these students' thoughtful reflections about the topic, which is excellent because you never know with freshmen.
Yeah, that's true. Oh my gosh, how long has it been since you taught your like first year experience? Because were you a FIG leader?
Yeah, so I think that's what I think has been my only experience, and that it's obviously very different now because I know a lot more, but also like we have content included like diversity, equity, and inclusion content, evaluating information. Like the difference between then and now is that there's other more timely information included that at least now we can still talk about in Georgia, and thank goodness for that.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, that was not really a thing that I learned about until I was in grad school.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you're able to talk about it in these freshman classes. So cool.
Agreed. Okay, as we talk, I'm going to remind myself, I'm going to be an interview mindset, and I'm going to try as best as possible not to talk over you, because I know that's the hardest part when doing the Zoom interviews.
Well, yes, that also I am recording. I am going to go back and do editing, so it's not going to be just like this entire sound file gets dumped onto the interwebs. Partially because humans say a lot and they don't need to know that. But also because I've got like my coffee here and my water, and so I'm sure there will be various slurpy sounds throughout.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
I'm very like buzzy energetically. This is a really fun day for me. It's a podcasty day, so I'm interviewing you. I'm on another podcast later, and I'm like setting up questions for next week's interview. So do you mind if we start off with just like a moment of like grounding and like breathing? Because I don't know if you could use that. I could sure use that. I like to.
Let's do it. That sounds good.
Okay, wonderful. So just get comfy in your chair. If you want to like adjust how you're sitting or roll out your shoulders or let any tension go. And then I'm going to put a hand on my heart and one on my belly. If that feels good for you, you can copy, or you can just bring your hands to your lap. And we're just going to take 3 deep breaths. Big inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. 2 more big inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Last one, breathing all the way in and exhale, release. I'm really excited to have you here today. I'm going to start off by introducing my very first guest on this podcast. So welcome to Anna Brady, Dr. Anna Brady, who is an assistant professor in educational psychology at Georgia Southern University. Anna earned her PhD in educational psychology from the Ohio State University, and she's particularly interested in researching motivation in college students. She's also a pretty excellent novice potter. So if you're into ceramic art, she's also very talented in that field. Anna, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really excited for this first season of the podcast to dive into topics that I think a lot of women are thinking about, possibly obsessing about, hyper obsessing about, but also not talking about really with each other. And for me, especially, I'm very into self improvement. I'm very into like motivational sciences and how to be better at things. I mean, I'm a life coach, so I do this with people professionally. You do this professionally. You so interested in how people are motivated to accomplish their goals? Like, where do you think that comes from for you?
So initially, as an undergraduate, when I started feeling interested in psychology and was really interested in student behavior and particularly in educational context, right? Like really immediately, I was looking around at the folks around me, wondering like, why are some of my peers getting it? Like understanding how to handle all of the responsibilities that come with college and other folks aren't getting it. Like what are the missing pieces? And I found myself drawn to not necessarily things like academic ability, prior academic experiences. I found myself really drawn to these skills like motivation regulation, like time management that students can improve on. And I feel really lucky that when I did my graduate training at Ohio State, while I was in graduate school, I got to serve as an academic coach for undergraduates and graduate students as well. And that was really neat because it helped me see how all these ideas that I was reading about and thinking about conducting studies on and, writing about can be translated into actually improving folks' day-to-day lives. And especially moving from just focusing on undergraduates to also helping support graduate students who oftentimes have lots more responsibilities than like an undergraduate student population. So all that to say, I got interested because I think that these theories and these ideas can be translated into tools that can do all of the things that you've already said, help us do the things that we want to do better and faster.
Were you always a pretty successful student? And you're like nodding. Were you always pretty successful? And was there ever a point where you were like, oh my gosh, the tools that I've been using now are just not cutting it?
Well, I think for me, the adjustment that has to happen when you move through college and then into life after college, adjusting those tools came really naturally. So it was easy for me to understand, like, the time management approaches that I'm using at this job aren't going to work anymore at this job because the way that my responsibilities are distributed are different. Or the motivation regulation strategies that I used, how I help myself do the things that I need to do when I don't feel like doing them, that I'm using now need to be adjusted to fit this new context. So I was more successful, but I really attribute a lot of that to that just natural trial and error, adjusting, regulating as I moved through life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. I have a similar sort of like just interest in time management techniques and like life hacks, I guess you might call them, or like how to become productivity hacks, how to get more productive, more done faster. And I remember like we first bonded over bullet journaling. So any of those techniques in your toolbox are able to transfer over when you find yourself in a new situation, trying something different. But a lot of motivational tips out there are sort of like, here's how you can help yourself reach these goals faster. Here's how you can be more productive. Here's how you can achieve more. A lot of them are sort of like couched in this pretty traditional social hierarchy of what we value as achievement and success. So for you, how are you able to balance that with also like the idea that you're still worthy, you're still valuable, even without having constantly to achieve more?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think part of it is that in my own life, I spend a lot of time thinking about values. And, there are some things that you just can't measure. Like there are some goals that I have that are not measurable, like things like being a good friend, right? that is super important to me. It's really valuable. It's something that I think about a lot, but when I think that that's when some of these ideas, these motivational ideas, are maybe not as helpful when working towards those sorts of goals. I'm thinking about, this isn't an answer to your question, but it's something that it's making me think about, which is that when I'm thinking about motivation, it's hard for me to think about motivation without thinking about goal setting. Like, I think about motivation as something that's driving you toward a particular goal. And I think a lot of times in life, at work or in academics, we aren't setting our own goals necessarily. Like, sometimes there's a boss who's telling you what goal you need to be working toward, or there's a teacher who's telling you what goal you need to be working toward, or for kids, there's a parent who's telling you what goal you need to be working toward. And so figuring out how to take those goals and then make them meaningful to you, maybe readjusting them a little bit or adding something to them or reframing, I think is really important in that balance.
Yeah, that is a huge thing. I haven't had to deal with it for a while as a self-employed human. But yeah, so often our goals are set by other people. For you, do you find it easier to set a goal or to motivate yourself to reach a goal that's been set for you, or one that you set yourself?
Yes, one that I set myself. And I think that there's research that supports that. The goals that we set ourselves are much more motivating.
What is a goal that you've set for yourself recently?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a second. A work goal, or just probably any goal?
Yeah, any goal.
So one goal, I have a reading goal for this year. My reading goal was to read 50 books. And actually, this is a really good example of how I approach goal setting in my day-to-day life, because yesterday or 2 days ago, I was looking at my reading goal of setting 50 books and noticing, that I've read like 31 books, and counting how many weeks we have till the end of the year. And this reading goal, I mean, it is driven by my desire to read more, right? But it's not, if I don't hit 50 books, it's not gonna like destroy my life. It's just a goal that I set to help myself read more. So right now I'm doing some evaluating and adjusting based on the information I have, which is how much time I have to get the last couple books in. And I think that practice of like looking at your goals and readjusting and reevaluating is something that sometimes people feel a little nervous about, because it feels like you're not hitting the goal that you initially set. But I find that practice to be really, really important, because otherwise, like, not updating based on new information, new obstacles, new strategies or resources might leave us either working towards goals that are too easy or consistently working towards goals that are too hard.
Yeah. I am just like flashing back to my first job in academic advising, where I was in a biology department advising. Almost every single student was pre-med, and just the process of not just reevaluating, like, is this goal you've set too hard or too easy, but also like, do you still want this goal? Is this still what you want to be working towards? Is a question that I don't think we ask ourselves enough after we like pick the goal, we set it up there, we put it on our vision board, we maybe set like a SMART goal and put numbers with it. And then we just work on it, and we don't necessarily stop to wonder, like, is this actually what I still want? Especially if it's like a longer term project.
Yeah, it's why I think New Year's resolutions can sometimes be tricky for people, because of this idea of like, okay, it's January, so now I'm going to set these goals for the whole next 12 months and then we'll see in a year. Like that is a big ask for January. And I find the practice of goal setting to be really useful, like in all parts of my life, and I am also a New Year's resolution goal setter. Like, I love a New Year's resolution, but that needs to be revisited and reframed and adjusted as time goes on, so that it's still motivating. Because if you realize, like me, okay, we've got like however, like 2 months or whatever until the end of the year. And I have 19 books to read. And I'm so overwhelmed by that I don't want to read a book for the rest of the year because it's going to make me feel bad about reaching this goal. That's not great, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I have had that experience not with a reading goal because I never reached my reading goals. They're like for me, it's really like an aspirational number that keeps me keeps me reading. So my reading goal for this year was I think 75 books, and I am still like 30 or so books off from that. I don't think I'm going to hit it, but it's just nice to have a number I'm reaching for. In much the same way that like sometimes I will sign up for and train for like a 10K or a half marathon with almost no intention of actually running it, but like knowing I'm signed up will keep me motivated to go running 2 or 3 times a week and like keep running longer and longer distances. And then last time I did that, I signed up for a 10K. I did the training. I felt really good. And then the morning of, I woke up and I was like, it's like 6 a.m. It's cloudy and gross, and I don't really want to go running today. And I just didn't do it. And part of me felt really let down. Like I had set this goal, I was going to participate in this big event, and now I'm not doing it. I'm quitting or I'm failing at reaching my goal. But a much bigger, I think more like emotionally developed part of me was like, look at how much movement you did with your body and how much stronger you feel and how much better you got at running over the last couple of months just because you signed up for this. Even if you don't go, you've still ended up miles ahead of like where you would have been if you hadn't set that goal for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a great example, I think, of when the process is, yeah, just as important as the end result, right? Like probably you were doing regular running throughout your time training for it. I've never trained to run anything, so I have no idea how much you were running or how often or anything, but I assume at least weekly you were doing some amount of running to lead towards that race.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the same thing with like the reading goal. Like you've read over 30 books already this year. Like that's probably a huge improvement over what you did before you had set that goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? So I am a person who like will set a goal and then halfway through I will get bored of this goal. Or maybe like overwhelmed by the goal. Why do you think that happens? You know, sometimes we like set a goal and we're just like, oh, I'm kind of bored with this. I don't know if I want to do it anymore. Is that a motivation thing? Is that like, are we setting the wrong goal or are we like just not able to follow through?
Yeah, I think that actually those two examples you provided, bored and then you said overwhelmed, right? Bored and then overwhelmed. I think that bored probably means that the goal is too easy and overwhelmed probably means the goal is too hard. And I think those are the two. I think this is what's so hard about goal setting is that it's really hard to set a like a realistically challenging goal, right? And I think in those moments where you're like, this is too boring, I just don't feel as interested in it anymore, trying to reframe and make it more challenging or figure out if there are pieces you can shift is really important. And for overwhelmed, same deal, trying to maybe not like move the goal, make the goal lower necessarily, but figuring out how you can make it feel less overwhelming, like breaking the goal into smaller chunks and creating smaller checkpoints, right? I do think it could also be a motivation issue, but motivation is really helping us understand like why we're focused on that goal. Like, is it meaningful? Is it going to serve us in the future? Is it interesting or enjoyable, right? There's all these different ways we might analyze our motivation, but having a really good goal before even thinking about motivation, I think is super important.
What is a goal that you like, the biggest goal that you set yourself and achieved, and what's the biggest goal that you like set yourself and did not achieve?
I think that probably getting a PhD was the biggest goal that I set myself and achieve. And honestly, I did not think I was going to be able to do it until literally they were saying, "Great job, you've successfully defended your dissertation." Like truly my approach in life has been like, sign up for the big scary hard thing and hopefully future Anna can figure it out. Because I think something else that's hard about goal setting is that there is, to a certain extent, like you're making a plan for the future after you've probably learned and done all these things. And so I think that like forecasting, like thinking about your future self and figuring out, is this something that I could actually achieve, can be really challenging. Probably my goals that I've worked towards and haven't achieved within the career realm are probably just like different research projects, publishing papers. So one part of my job, right, is conducting studies, writing those studies up, and then sending them off for publication. And when I start a research project, usually it takes a year or two to get to the point where you're submitting it to publication. So it's something that you're planning for in the distant future. And it is an example of a goal where just things don't go as planned. And so maybe you don't have something that you're able to send off. And it sucks. I mean, anytime you're not reaching or hitting a goal is a bummer. But I think that reframing and pivoting and trying to modify is super helpful.
Have you ever read the book by Elizabeth Gilbert? It's called Big Magic.
No, I haven't, but it's on my list because I've heard it's really amazing and good for anybody anybody in general, but especially good for creative folks, right?
Yeah, it's definitely geared toward creative folks. The part of it that I just was reminded of is she talks about how when she decided she was going to be a writer, she started sending out her work and getting all these rejections, and how at one point she starts like keeping and framing and like hanging up these rejections as just evidence that she is in fact a writer, and that like eventually one of these is gonna work out.
Yeah.
I'm terribly paraphrasing that. But I've started to make this mental shift, like coming off my own personal stint as an achievement junkie and a perfectionist, of almost like chasing failure instead of chasing success, because the most successful people, like the people who earn their PhD or who are widely published and who get a lot of stuff done, have so much more failure than I have so far. And so I'm almost like, well, I'm questing after failure, because there's no way to get to a really big level of success without hitting a whole bunch of failure first. And I think that's something that's really interesting to try to build into like the goal setting and motivation process.
Yeah, for sure. And I think reframing, so like my example of working on a research project and then sending it off to publication. I know that when I first started working on research, my goal would be like, I want this thing published. I want this to be in the hands of, well, everything's online, so not in the hands, with people's eyes on it. And then I realized, like, oh, to a certain extent, this is not up to me. Like, if I'm sending something off to get published, or I'm submitting to a conference, or I'm, nominated for an award or something, like, there's all these people who are making this choice. It's not up to me. All I can do is work as hard as I can, and then it's up to these other people. And so I really try and reframe as the goal is submission. And I think that works for like people who are looking for a job as well, who are submitting job applications, because there's just so much that's outside of your control. And I don't know if it's useful to worry too much about those things. Instead, shifting to my goal is submission, I think is a much more motivating process.
That is so good to hear. And especially I know there's so many people out there who are looking for jobs, because all these companies have been doing these massive layoffs. And so you're super qualified. You know you can do the job. You're applying for the job. And I know people, like some friends of mine, some clients of mine, who just get so heartbroken when they don't hear back from the job, when they don't get the interview, or a lot of times like just don't hear back at all. They just like are ghosted by these companies. It's like it's not your job to get that particular job. It's you're just applying, you're just sending it out there. And yeah, what's just now occurring to me, but like what a huge shift from being like a student or in a job where your goals are set by someone else. You're like, okay, do X, Y, and Z, and then you get an A, or do X, Y, and Z, and then you get like your salary or your bonus, to how you're setting your own goal, and also you have much less control over whether or not you actually reach that goal. What advice would you give to someone who's like making that switch, like going from college to applying to jobs, or going from, having a really structured job to now back into like a world of unemployment or fun employment or self-employment?
I think that when I'm thinking about folks who are applying for jobs, I think for sure applying should be the goal, and not getting the job. Like we've already talked about, like it's just not up to you in full. And even I think even after the interview point, right? Like remembering there's a bunch of people involved, and who knows? There's just so many dynamics that go into hiring someone. But also, hold on, sorry, I lost my train of thought because I was so focused on what I was saying. I was thinking about jobs and applying for jobs. Yeah, pauses for sip of tea. I'll come back to it.
Find our way back.
Yeah, I'll think of what I was going to say. I also think, so the way that my job is structured is that I don't really I have to be in the classroom on certain days teaching the students, but otherwise the rest of my time is up to me. And so I think that thinking through things like what time of the day do I feel most energized? I'm going to do my high focus tasks. Then how can I work to protect my time and modify my schedule in a way that allows me to, go through work in a way where I can be the most productive, is really helpful. So like, I think that I saw on social media recently, Megan, that you were talking about how like you had noticed that on Mondays you needed like a slow start, and feels like I'm sure no one is really hitting the ground running on Monday morning. I know I'm not always hitting the ground Monday. I'm like snoozing on my alarm. But I know it feels like that sometimes. So making that shift to having a little slower start, like I think that is the best thing about having a more flexible schedule and more flexible time. And not everybody can do that, although I do think there are ways that people can build in, even in more structured jobs, little bits of that, like trying to be as strategic as possible. I think that is a really brilliant way to try and figure out how to optimize, but like in a compassionate way, not productivity for the sake of productivity, just recognizing your ebb and flow throughout the week and then modifying your schedule to fit that.
Yes, that's definitely something I've been doing recently. Today is Monday, and I started the day. I had like a class I had to go teach, and then I immediately went to a coffee shop and took out my knitting and was like, slow start to my Monday, because I've got a lot on my plate today. And I know that it gets really draining, right? And I love to do my people work at a different time of the day that I do sort of my like sit down and take care of business work. And so that's something that I've noticed too is really helpful for me, is like, when do I like to people? When do I like to be in a room by myself with my computer and just checking tasks off my list?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think the where is important as well, right? Like, if you have the flexibility, I know not everybody does, but what is the best work for me to do at home? What is the best work for me to do at the office? What is the best work for me to do at the coffee shop? What is the best work for me to do while I'm like, have my earbuds in and I'm walking the dog? Like, just trying to figure out how to I don't know, I guess balance work and life a little bit better.
Yeah. How do you balance your work and life right now? I mean, professor is a huge job. It's super flexible, but it's also like because it's very flexible, it's not like you really have a ton of time off during the week.
Mhm.
Um, what are some of the tools that are the most useful for you right now?
So, time management is super important. So every week I create a running list of all of the things that I plan to complete in the course of the week. And then every day I make like mini to-do lists. I use like an electronic calendar to schedule my time. And then I have a paper pencil planner to write my task lists. I just can't quit the paper pencil planner. But that's why I have the electronic calendar to, offset so I can pull out my
Mhm.
phone and schedule things. Although I could really work any time of the day, like I don't have a set schedule other than, of course, the days I have to be in the classroom teaching the students. I keep basically an 8 to 5 schedule that just works really well for me. And I feel like it allows me to be at work when other people are working and then be home when other people are at home, like other people as in my husband, but also just the flexibility of like friends or at working at the same time I'm working and then at home at the same time, to balance life a little bit. Just actually last week instituted a new practice because I realized that I was coming into the office and just basically sitting down some days and not getting up until I left. I've started timing myself so every 50 minutes I take a 10-minute walk.
I
That
love
has
that.
been it really has like really, I only instituted it last week, so it's probably silly to say it's already changed my work, but it feels like it's really changed my work because of course no one can pay attention for 8 hours. Like if I'm sitting at
Right.
my in my desk for 8 hours, I'm not just working that whole time. I'm like scrolling a little bit here. Maybe I'm answering a phone call. Like there are non-work things happening. But this just allows me to focus, and then take those non-work things and do whatever non-work things I want to do while I'm also moving my body.
It's so good. Yeah. And there's a lot of research. I'm really interested in this about like what happens to our human body when instead of doing all the things that the human body sort of evolved to be able to do, we just sort of sit in the same place all day and then sit in our car and then come home and sit on our couch. And it's not good. It's not good. So even just taking those couple of minutes every hour or so to get up, and whether it's like walking or just shaking out your body or doing some stretches, it's such a benefit to your brain function, your body function. Gosh, I just really hope that because we do stuff like that, because we're learning now to do stuff like that, that when we're like 80 and 90, we are still able to like walk around.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I was thinking, like, oh, good, I'll start this as we transition into fall in Georgia so that when it's the hot, humid summer, maybe I'll really be in the routine. Like that heat's not going to bother me because I'll be ready to do my 10-minute walk every 50 minutes.
Oh my goodness, yes, because it does get super hot there. I used to do it, well, I still do it in Florida, and it's gotten a lot more difficult for me to do that now that I work from home and like I control the temperature. But it was so
Yeah.
nice in the middle of summer to leave the building that's like 65 degrees always and go outside to be in like 90 degrees for a couple of minutes and then come back in and freeze slowly.
I do want to add that I was for sure thinking of you as I was implementing this practice because I will never forget working with you. And occasionally I'd look out and you'd be doing like a handstand on the wall. And I'd be like, yep, that's just Megan between meetings. And
It feels so good.
I hope you keep this in because I need people to understand that there was a front desk and the handstand was happening right directly next to the front desk, if my memory is correct. It was not in your private office because it was too small in those little offices. It was like in the shared space, which is like amazing and honestly good modeling because everybody needs to get up. Maybe not do a handstand. I can't do a handstand yet, maybe one day, but get up and move their bodies.
Yes, that is something that I think in that workplace. So Anna and I used to work together almost like a decade ago now. Um, and I think we were really good in that workplace. Like I feel like me and Kyle had just gotten Fitbits. And so we would do like Fitbit challenges and see which of us could beat the other. And then we would like All of us sometimes go to the basement of the next door building and play ping pong for a couple minutes. Like it was a good culture of like, yes, we are working, but also sometimes we are going to get up and move our meat suits so that like we can stay awake and we can stay alert and we can stay generally happy and positive to be around, because it was a lot of stressful days in that office too.
Yeah. Honestly, I there's just so much evidence that supports why it's so important to take these breaks. Like there's a lot of research on just our concentration cycle and how bringing it back to motivation, how taking small breaks can enhance motivation, right? It is easier to get stuff done if you're giving yourself a break every once in a while. And
Yes.
also just happier people, right? Not just to get stuff done, but also just like to be a happier human.
Yes. Happier people get more stuff done is the secret. Okay, so I want to circle back to something you said really early on, which I just realized we didn't answer, which is you got into like time management and motivation and all of this stuff as a research interest because you were like, why are some of my peers getting this and just like succeeding? And some of us are just like sitting over here on the struggle bus and can't seem to find our way out. So now that you have like done more research on this and like written your dissertation and everything, like, do you have an answer? Do you have more of an insight into why some people just seem to be able to like pop into an academic environment and figure things out, and others are really confused and take a lot more assistance to adjust?
Yeah, a lot of it is that some students have access to resources and are exposed to those skills earlier on, like in K-12, and other students aren't. And I mean, college introduces so many new responsibilities for students, right? A lot of students are experiencing all these big new things for the first time and also are needing to work through and control all these responsibilities much more independently than they needed to in high school. And I do think some high schools do a really good job of preparing students. Like some of the curriculum on motivation and self-regulated learning has been embedded into high school. And for other students, they just don't have those opportunities. So a lot of colleges actually implement first year experience courses that students take as freshmen. But even beyond first year experience courses, there are courses, right, that I think you taught the one at Florida State to teach students how to be successful college students. And I think that, I probably wouldn't have been as interested in motivation and self-regulated learning, which is just the fancy term for the theory that explains things like how to approach academic tasks and how to manage your time and all that good stuff. I wouldn't have been as interested in it if I didn't immediately learn that they were skills that can be taught, which I think is great news, right? Knowing that these are skills that can be taught helps. Then we can start thinking about like, okay, so then how do we teach those skills? So I've been involved in really interesting projects where we design courses based on research to help students become more motivated and more self-regulated as they move through college. I've been involved in interventions where we're actually embedding it into particular classes. So I worked on a project where we taught bio students an introduction to bio, how to manage their time and also how to learn more effectively, use more effective learning strategies. And the evidence so far supports that those students then do get higher grades and also have other great academic outcomes like report higher persistence toward their degree, right? Like I really want to stay in college and finish this thing out, compared to students who don't get those sorts of interventions.
That is amazing. So I feel like not you and not in like educational psychology as a field, but in the wider lens of society, we really treat motivation as something that like you're either born a motivated person or you're not. Like you're either a motivated, high achieving person or you're lazy. But it's not that. It's like there are skills and techniques. And if you're learning those skills and techniques, if you at some point are taught those, then you're going to succeed in these environments. And if you're not taught them, you're not going to know what to do. And no one is born just like knowing how to be motivated.
Yeah, that's right. I should try and pull up this quote that I show students a lot because I don't know who said it off the top of my head, but it says something uh like motive oh gosh, I'm gonna do a bad job. I'm gonna pull it up as we're talking. It's like motivation and showers don't last. That's why I shower daily or something like that. But the point of the quote is that you can't expect that you'll be motivated every single day, right? Like sometimes you have to do some work to try and enhance that motivation. And I always when I'm talking to students about motivation, we have to have this conversation where I'm like, you know, the way you think it happens is that you wake up one morning and you're like, today is the day I will do college algebra. I am just so excited to do college algebra. But that might never happen. Like for some,
never for me.
Might never wake up and think like today's college algebra day. And so sometimes actually like engaging in the task has to happen before you start feeling motivated. And so that's why one of the tricks that I think can be really helpful is things like setting a timer for yourself, even for 15 minutes, doing a task for 15 minutes, telling yourself like, I can stop after 15 minutes. And oftentimes once you hit that 15-minute mark, you'll keep going. Honestly, I use this to do the dishes all the time. Like I do not like to do the dishes. I'm never going to wake up and think today's dishes day. Like doing the dishes is my least favorite chore. So if I really have to do the dishes and I really don't want to do the dishes, I set myself a timer and I say, okay, Anna, we're going to do this for 15 minutes. And if I don't feel like doing it after that, like I can stop. And usually the timer goes off and I'm like, okay, I'll just finish these silly dishes.
I use that same kind of technique for running actually, because I am a runner, but like I don't like running. I enjoy having run, if that makes sense. Like I feel great after, and I do not enjoy the preparation, and I don't enjoy the first 15 minutes of any run. And so I really have to tell myself, like, while I'm setting out for the day, especially if it's a longer run, it's just like, you do not have to do this forever. Like you're just going to run until you hit 15 or 20 minutes, because you know that that's when you're going to start enjoying this process. And if you stop before then, you will not have had a good time. But if you stop at like 22 minutes, you'll be like, oh yeah, I do kind of like running.
Yeah, it's really a good strategy. And the reason it works is because you're breaking the task down. You're making this thing that feels large and insurmountable smaller, right? But in practice, you're just setting your little timer and, and doing that. I should try that with running. You almost convinced me that I could be a runner there for a second.
Yeah, it's unnecessary, but if you do want to do it, I recommend. Yeah. I don't know anyone who enjoys like the first 10 minutes of running. It's really
maybe
like you gotta
something special. 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes of anything that you don't love.
Yeah, or the first first like 15 or 20 pages of a book, and you're like, I'm not really into this book yet, and then you hit page 50 and you're like, I cannot put this book down.
There's so many things. Even driving, when you have to put on pants and go out to meet a friend, the drive to get there, you're like, I want to go home and get back on my couch. And you get there and you're like, all right, this is fine.
Yeah, it's worth it, it turns out, in the end. Okay, so you found the quote, you put it in the meeting chat. Can you read it for our listeners who maybe can't see us in person?
Yeah, I can. It's people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily, by Zig Ziglar. I think that's it's so good because it just perfectly encapsulates why motivation regulation strategies, like the example we just gave, breaking down tasks, can be so helpful.
And I know for people who struggle with like anxiety and depression, or people who are like neurodivergent, a lot of days there's like a day you wake up and you're like, I just don't want to do anything today. I'm just going to stay in bed. And the advice I've always heard is like, just do something. Just like get up and brush your teeth or take a shower or make yourself breakfast. And it seems like that shares like a through line with this advice of like, start doing the action as if like, let's pretend you were motivated for 10 or 15 minutes. and see what happens after that, because just like get up and get moving and just see what comes out of it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
So now I want to talk about the people who are on the other side of the spectrum. And these are the people who are like maybe a little bit overly motivated. Um, so I'm sure you know people like this who are like, they're so goal oriented that they're like, I'm working. I can't let myself stop. And as soon as they reach the goal, they're like, my life is meaningless. Let's set a new goal. And like goal chasers almost, like they're gonna keep working and maybe like don't have the time to like is there a thing as too much motivation of being too goal oriented?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of different theories that work to explain motivation. And one thing, we probably don't have time to go through all the motivation theories. And honestly, that might not be interesting to most people. But one kind of interesting main theme is that some motivation is adaptive and some motivation is maladaptive, meaning that like not all motivation is necessarily a good thing. So, for example, I'll tell you one theory, which is achievement goal theory. With achievement goal theory, we describe students' motivation as either aimed at mastering or understanding a skill. So imagine a student in the classroom, maybe let's use college algebra again. This student is like, the mastery oriented student is like so excited to understand a college algebra. When they're sitting in lecture, they're listening because they really want to develop their skills, right? And then our other student is more performance goal oriented. They're really just focused on that good grade. They're focused on getting the praise of their professor. They might be focused on looking better than the students around them. Their arm is shooting up because they want to ask like the best question in the classroom. They're not necessarily focused on learning or understanding. They're just really aimed at performing, right? And when researchers study these two different types of motivations and how they work in the classroom, what they find is usually those students who are more mastery oriented, they do get good grades, usually as good of grades as the performance oriented students, but they're also using all those really good, meaningful strategies that are aimed at long-term retention, where our performance oriented students are not necessarily doing that. They're learning it and then getting rid of that information, and they're more likely to engage in some negative behaviors like potentially cheating, right? Because they're less concerned about learning and understanding. They're more focused on just performing. And so when I think of the reason why I'm telling you about that theory and connecting it to the goal chasers is that I think sometimes the way that like kind of translates to outside of of academic context is that focus on performing. And let me say, it sounds like when I'm describing it, I'm kind of describing good and bad, but it's really not good and bad necessarily, right? Like, it's just human. I'm a super performance oriented person sometimes. And it is something that I have to really intentionally try and shift myself away from. Like, not everything we don't always need to be focused on getting a good grade. Yeah. And I say that not in school.
I think so many of us, we graduate from school and then we're still chasing the A plus, and it's like no one is grading you anymore. So why are we still chasing the like most improved, like 110% extra credit version of our goals? That sounds, I think the faces, I'm sure you saw me making faces, and I think it was just like, oh gosh, that really hits. That really hits deep.
Yeah, it's so funny because when I started doing pottery, it is like my outlet. Like, it's the thing that makes me feel like more grounded. It's a super mindful practice. You really can't think of anything else. And I really have to stop myself from like saying, hey teacher, if you were to grade this on a scale, like what would you give it? Because it's at a local art center. The person who teaches it, she's has an MFA and has taught college level pottery. So I know
so
she's given grades before. Yeah. And I think it's really hard. And I find, at least for me, when I am just recognizing that in myself and then shifting, trying to tell myself like we don't need to, like, our goal is to learn and understand and to grow and to develop, right? Like I kind of have to have that inner monologue with myself that at least makes it a little easier. It sort of reminds me of memes I've seen where it's like the high achieving student in therapy who wants like a sticker at the end, like I'm the best patient, right? Which is sort of along the same lines.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Even in life coaching sessions, I'll have people who are like, I'm so sorry I didn't do the stuff that I said I was going to do last time. I'm like, it's okay. It's not, we're not grading you. It's okay. If you didn't do the homework, that's fine. We'll move forward from there. But yeah, even like people want to get like an A plus in life coaching. And I'm like, I don't think that's a thing. Yes. How? Okay. So I feel like this is a really fun topic of that like performance motivation versus mastery motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And it really makes me think of with like social media right now, how much of everything we do is performance motivated. Like,
Yeah, that's interesting.
like when you are doing something cool, you go on a vacation, and it's not even like I'm going to be here and experience and get the most out of my vacation. It's like I'm going to get the best pictures to show on social media that I got an A plus in vacation. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting connection. And I think, yeah, I think like when we take the theory and we think about how it might work in other parts of life, it is the difference between just like enjoying living and then like, yeah, performing living. That
wow,
might be
that's
even a
deep.
little too performing living um, sounds, yeah, really not great. Maladaptive.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I think about maybe not a lot, but frequently because I definitely used to be trying to get an A plus in vacation all the time. To the point where my husband had to say, like, this isn't fun for me anymore. Like, I get really stressed, especially Disney vacations. He would get really stressed. And he just felt like I wasn't having a good time unless everything went perfectly. And so he wasn't having a good time ever because even if things were going perfectly, he was waiting for something to happen that would make me disappointed.
Yeah.
And it was so, I didn't even realize that I was doing it until he pointed it out to me. And so I have made like a huge change in the way I approach travel and the way I approach trips. And yeah, I have more fun. I don't maybe have as many pictures, but I have so much more fun if like my plans for the day are like, we're going to have dinner at this place, but other than that, we're just going to see where the day takes us, and we're just going to actually like enjoy our time here.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. And I'm just thinking about this, like the like hyper, because I used to be a hyper planner as well. And I had to, at one point, I had to tell myself, like, I cannot make so many plans on the weekend because it's ruining my fun time to be so focused on like what time I'm getting up and then I'm doing this and then I'm doing this. And it doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen in this order, like the whole weekend is destroyed because I didn't do the things that I needed to do in the appropriate order.
Got to get an A plus in a weekend.
Yeah, it's so hard. I'll also add that since you find the performance and mastery goals interesting, when we actually also distinguish between two different types of mastery and two different types of performance goals. In for performance goals, well, for both, we distinguish between avoidance goals and approach goals. And approach goals for a performance approach goals might look like a student, it's all the examples I gave, trying to get the A, trying to seek out praise, all that good stuff. Performance avoidance goals looks more like a student who is avoiding looking the worst or avoiding not failing. And it sounds almost the same, but the framing is slightly different. And when we look at students comparing mastery and performance approach and performance avoidance, those performance avoidance are the students who have the hardest time, who demonstrate the worst outcomes because they're not focused on, looking the best. They're focused on not looking the worst.
So a performance focus, just either way, sounds super stressful. If someone is listening to us now and doing what I did and being like, shoot, that's me. Um, what can you do to sort of switch your operating system to be more of a person who focuses on the process, on what you're learning, and being in the moment versus someone who's focused so much on either not being the worst or showing everyone how much the best you are?
I think that part of it for sure is intentionally setting different types of goals. And honestly, I love SMART goals, but I might even say if someone is so focused on performance, I would probably even maybe move away from SMART goals and set more process-oriented goals. So for your 5K example or marathon example, now I can't remember how far you were running. For that person who was focused on running this race, I would reframe to, I'm running once a week. I'm just running once a week, like really focused on the process rather than that outcome. And then hearing the performance voice and talking back to it. And even I think maybe even not just talking back to it yourself, but like sharing those feelings with your support system around you and have them help you talk back to that voice. Because a lot of it actually is like this internal work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like that's a really good suggestion. And my like clap back to that is like who these days really has like a support system that they feel vulnerable enough with to be like, just so you know, I'm working on this goal and I'm worried that like I'm focused too much on how other people perceive. I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is I'm like, yeah, it would be great to have a network that I could go to and be like, yeah, I'm really in my head about how much I'm focused on performance. But aside from like my therapist, do you have like that kind of system in your life and how did you make it?
So I do. So I have a goal setting group. This is where I really, really show how incredibly nerdy I am. I have a goal setting group. There's 5 of us. And we meet once a week. All of us went to graduate school together. And now at this point, everyone is in different types of careers. So every single week we meet and we discuss our goals for the coming week. We do some like catching up. There's problem solving that happens in the group. So for example, if someone is like having a hard time with an issue with a supervisor or they're working through something at work, we do some like, let's all rally around this person and help them figure out. If someone is thinking about a career change, that's a good opportunity for us all to discuss and share ideas or share supports or resources or whatever. But we have an Excel spreadsheet where we report out on our goals. And then the following week, we all update the spreadsheet during our goal setting group time. And we color code based on whether or not we achieved the goal.
Okay, that is nerdy. I love it. I love it so much.
And then I will take full credit that I instituted something that I'm very, very serious about people completing, which is a weekly win as well. So everyone is required to write out a weekly win. And it does not matter what part of life the weekly win is in. It can be anything. Sometimes it's I kept my kids alive. And that's a great win. That's amazing.
That's
right?
hard work.
Like, come on. Because one thing that as we had this, I think we've been doing this goal setting group for maybe 2 years now. It might even be a little longer. It started during the pandemic. And what I reflected on was that there are good things that happen all the time, and we weren't necessarily making space for those good things because we were so focused on our goals. And in those moments that happen to everybody, where like there's multiple weeks where you're not hitting whatever goal is that you're working towards. It's good to have this moment of celebration as well. And I know this is an interview, but I'm going to show you. I can show you. And I also do pull like a lot of pictures onto the goal setting group. Must have cut someone out of this in my mind. There are 6 of us, I guess. But you can see
you're one of them.
Yeah, that's right. And some of these people are going to be in trouble because they aren't updating their weekly wins. And literally every time I'm in the group chat, like, if you all don't update your weekly wins, you're going to be in big trouble. You can see we've got a range here. Like this person wrote one week that they got their shit together, and that's great. That's a good win.
Yes. I love this.
It's really awesome. And I'm scrolling down to, and you can see like it's not like everybody is doing all their goals. Yellow means I did it, gray means I started it or did something but I didn't complete it, and red is I didn't do it at all. And actually, let me move back because I can hear one of these lovely ladies' voices in my head right now yelling at me. It's not gray, it's silver. Gold, silver, and red. And I always say gray. And it shouldn't be gray, it's silver.
So you got like a silver medal.
Exactly.
You tried. You maybe didn't come in first this week. That's so cool.
It's really great. And actually, one thing that I haven't done yet, but that I really want to do is I really want to compile all our weekly wins at the end of the year and do some sort of like compiling and just showing, because everybody does so much across all of our different lives and across all of the domains, work and personal life, right? And I just really don't feel like we aren't always very good at celebrating each other's successes. So creating space for that, I think, is just like really important.
That is so important because it's also a lot easier to celebrate other people than it is to celebrate ourselves and to notice our own wins. And so if you're sharing them, then having that extra level of like being celebrated for it by your peers, by your friends, that's not something that we get that often.
Yeah. And I think what makes this group really work and why we've sustained it for a couple of years is that like we're all living in different places. I think that two people live in the same city, but otherwise all of us are in different places. But our through line is just like, we all really want to see each other succeed. Like genuinely everyone, if someone is looking for a job, everyone is sending jobs to our group chat as the week goes on to try and help, like, oh, I saw this and let me know if you need any of my materials and I'm happy to read something for you. And that type of support is just not something that is always available if you don't create space for it.
How did you create this group? And like, how could someone who maybe doesn't have access to a whole like cadre of education psychology grad students recreate that kind of support network?
So it started out as me and one other person who were just meeting weekly to work on, we were both on the job market actually. And so we were meeting every week to work on applying for jobs as we were both finishing up dissertations. And then it just sort of organically expanded where like we were having these conversations about goal setting. And then we realized, oh, this other person, they might be interested in being a part of this group as well. And has just, slowly new folks have joined. It's not like an exclusive thing. It's more like somebody in the group is like, I think this person would benefit really also. And then a new person just gets added to our like calendar invite. I think that starting with a duo and then or a trio and thinking about whether or not there are any other folks who are connected might be really useful, because a lot of what we're talking about is like career stuff. It helps that we tend to be in the same field-ish, although we're not all in university settings. We still do have this through line of like, we're all in the education realm in some way. But I could also see if we were more focused on personal goals, I could see this being really useful for people who maybe don't work in the same discipline. Your second question was about like, how would you recreate it? And I think the weekly wins is really essential. I really think having some sort of tracking system and sometimes it is forcing people to share out a weekly win is so important. And then I think our goal setting approach, having people set goals and then look at the next week, kind of share out and update whether or not they were completed or not completed, is also really useful.
I love that. So it doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm gonna start this group of people to keep me on track. It can be just one person. You don't have to initially feel comfortable sharing this kind of conversation with 5 people. It can be like one person, approach them, get it started, and then along the way, if you feel like you meet someone else who would like to do it, or who, oh, this person comes to mind, and then you can bring them in and slowly grow it to more of a network. But even just having that one person to share your wins with and to share your challenges with, someone to reflect back and to call you out when, you know, you're maybe slipping into more of a performance mindset than you would like. That sounds so much more accessible than like, yeah,
me and my 5 friends. Yeah. Because I was thinking like, yeah, if I was like, oh, I want to read more books and run, then I'd be like, hey, Megan, do you want to meet once a week and talk about our 2 goals of reading more books and running? And we would probably, I'm sure, do things like talk about when we're reading and what books you're enjoying and what's getting in the way of getting those runs done and all that good stuff, right?
Yeah, so it can be for any goal. That sounds like such a fun takeaway. I really hope that some of you listening will, go home and start your little motivation duo or your motivation group, because I feel like I would benefit a ton from that, of having that in my life. And I can't think of anyone who really wouldn't benefit from actually having a group of, like a book club almost, but instead of talking about books that you actually haven't read anyway, you're talking about like what's going on in your life and what goals you're working towards. And it just sounds so much fun. And it also sounds like so much more meaningful than just having an accountability partner, but like our goals are the things we're working towards in our lives. Like that's part of what makes us who we are. And it's not something that you always necessarily are able to talk to your partner about, or your family about, or even sometimes your best friends about, because that's just not how that relationship is.
Yeah. And I think it has 2 really good ties to motivation, which is providing accountability, right? Like if I am telling at least these 5 people I'm going to get this thing done, I do have at least a little bit of the feeling of like these 5 people are waiting for me to do this thing, right? And then like help seeking and support, because a lot of times the reason why we're not feeling motivated is because we need additional resources or strategies, or just like we need a little bit of help.
That's so true. Yeah. So to help when it's overwhelming, and maybe to have some people in your corner to call you out when your goals are like a little too easy.
Yeah. I will also say that at Ohio State, after I left, one of the people who was in the goal setting group, she works at the Success Center. And so she actually instituted this for graduate students. So the idea was like, we don't have the capacity to do the amount of academic coaching that, like, there's just so much demand and not enough academic coaches. And so she did a model with graduate students where it was folks who just kind of signed up. So I think you should do this with life coaching.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's definitely something to think about. Love the idea. It's sort of like, it is a lot of what I've seen in like group coaching programs. And I think especially if you have people who you know in real life, it's even more powerful, because it's not just like strangers on the internet who are telling you to do this. It's like someone you know, someone you've sat in class with, or someone that you work with, right? And that can be really powerful as well. Okay, Anna, I want to transition to my sort of bonus questions at the end. And these are questions that I think I want to ask everyone on the podcast. So either they will become like a touchstone of this, or I will cut them and no one answers. We don't know.
Okay, great. No pressure.
Okay, question 1. What's the last thing you read and absolutely loved?
Absolutely love. I know it's rapid fire. Just give me 1 second. I really loved, I feel like the first thing that's coming to my mind is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which I read last year. It's a fiction novel about video game design, but like I'm not a gamer and I absolutely loved it. That was really good.
Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I've heard
By
really,
Gabrielle,
really good things
I think
about
it's Gabrielle Zevin.
I will make sure we have the correct information in the show notes. Okay, Question number 2, what is the song that you currently will put on when you need to feel like a badass?
Oh, always Dancing on My Own by Robin.
Such a good one.
It's such an
Okay.
easy answer. Before anything, new gym class, I'm listen to that 3 times on the way there. Interview or something like that, like a big work thing. Yeah, I'm listening to Dancing on My Own by Robin.
Did you listen to it today?
So no, I didn't, but not because I wasn't excited and amping myself up, but because I had another meeting directly before this.
That's fair. You listened to it in spirit. I can appreciate
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
I'll just take it as a compliment that you know I wasn't going to be an intimidating interviewer. You knew you were going to have fun. Okay, question number 3. This is the last one. What is one thing that you do regularly to help you stay in touch with like the best version of yourself?
I really like reflect on values in different domains of my life. I think that it was in therapy that I spent time in therapy during grad school, that I spent a lot of time working and thinking about values, and how sometimes when you're struggling with something, it could be because 2 of your values are in conflict. And so really reflecting on values is the most helpful way for me to stay grounded and connected to myself.
Do you do that just like off the top of your head, or do you have a specific sort of format that you use to reflect and check in?
So 2, yes, yes, and yes. Sometimes I will like write them down, write values down on a sticky note or something like that. For a long time, I had my work values literally on a sticky note in front of my desk. And that's helpful because when I was making decisions or just, handling day-to-day things, I could glance down and see like, these are my values. And it's things like compassion, empathy, supporting one another, just thinking about the humans that I interact with day to day and how can I channel just being a good human in those interactions. Not that I was like knocking people down or, sending rude emails, but still sometimes, you get frustrated, and recognizing like we're all doing our best is important. And honestly, even if somebody is not doing their best, that's also fine. It's hard sometimes. And then kind of less formally, just when I'm working through a challenge or I'm feeling frustrated about something, that's sort of like the first thing I think about is like, if I think about my values, how do those play into this frustration? Why is this situation making me feel uncomfortable? Or why is it making me feel, frustrated?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I like the first 2 were like really simple, fluffy questions, and the last one got really deep. Like, what are your core
I don't know. The
values?
hardest one for me was the book. So I don't know what that says about me. I was like, yeah, values 100%, but I have no idea what thing I read. And as you know, I read 31 books this year. So this
None
hasn't
of
been
them,
as good of a
none
reading
of
year,
them loved.
actually,
Sad.
because I
Mhm.
read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow in 2022. So it's true.
Yeah, I have heard so many good things about that book, though. I'm not surprised that that was one that really stuck out in your mind.
Okay, I want to add one thing, and it's okay if this isn't a part of it. Yellowface. I also read Yellowface like last week. I had to look at my Goodreads, and that was very good. Yellowface is about like when people are profiting off of cultures and experiences that aren't their own, and it's focused on the publishing industry, and it was just like I flew through it. It was so good and it's so relevant.
Okay, I will include that. I think that's
Yeah, by
irrelevant.
R.F.
Although
Kuang.
I'm a little concerned that you read it last week and you didn't remember that you read it and loved
No,
it.
I know it's hard.
Life is hard sometimes, though. Okay, final question. What is your biggest win from the last week?
Ooh, my biggest win from last week, actually, it's a pottery win. I am making a set of mugs for my brother-in-law based on his interests. And so I made some really sick pottery mugs. So really, really good mugs. One is like an E. coli mug. It's going to be disgusting and amazing. And he's going to lose his mind because nobody else, I'm pretty sure, has an E. coli mug or a
I
rock
can't
climbing
imagine.
mug, chess mug, all kinds of cool things. Really
So
custom.
a whole set of custom mugs. That's
Yeah,
intense.
he's gonna freak
Congratulations.
out.
That's so cool. Are they Christmas gifts or?
They are.
Okay, good. Well, this won't air until well after Christmas, so
He
it's
loves
safe.
me. I don't know that he'll listen to this. anyways.
Just in case. We don't want him to get back to him before he gets it. But by the time
Perfect.
this airs, he should have them safely in hand.
What was your win from this past week?
My biggest win from this past week, gosh, it's really hard to like stop and think about it. My biggest win from this past week was not going to the gym one day. So I have been really struggling with like overexerting myself, and then I will have like 4 or 5 days where I just feel like I can't do anything.
Oh.
And so I've really been trying to be really conscious of like, okay, I have the energy to go to the gym, but if I go to the gym, will I have the energy for the rest of the evening and like into tomorrow to do the things that I know I want to do? And so cutting back last week from like the number of workouts that like in my head I think I want to do to like the number that my body actually wants me to do. And so I did not go and work out on a Thursday afternoon. And I could have, but I didn't. And that was actually a win for me. So sometimes my wins are like not doing things.
Yeah, listening to yourself. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for celebrating with me. And thank you so much for letting me steal some of your time this way. I am so excited to have gotten the chance to talk to you like this again. And I hope we get to do it again soon.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to stop recording. Am I going to stop recording? Yes.